Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's webinar, Inclusion Supporting All Abilities of Students Learning Together. My name is Kathy Miller, and I'm the Director of Community Supports and Services here at the Institute on Disabilities at Temple University. Our project, Competence in Confidence, Partners in Policymaking, Family Leadership for Inclusive Education in Non-Traditional Schools, is brought to you by the Institute on Disabilities at Temple University. Funding for the project comes from the Pennsylvania Developmental Disabilities Council. Our project, which we fondly call P2P2 Family Leadership in Inclusive Education, is designed for families of students with disabilities who are educated in home schools, cyber charter schools, private schools, and parochial schools. Oops. Okay, excuse me just a minute. This doesn't seem to be changing. Okay, thank you everyone for your patience. Let me tell you a little bit about C2P2 Family Leadership. The goal is to create a network of family leaders who will work together with educators and administrators to champion inclusive practices for children with disabilities in the non-traditional school community. Our project activities include these webinars, tonight being one of them, our second webinar in the series, guidance and technical assistance from trained parent consultants, an annual opportunity for networking with other families to help achieve true inclusion for children, and online resources. Tonight's webinar, Inclusion Supporting All Abilities of Students Learning Together, is presented by Pennsylvania's Education for All Coalition family members, which you may know as PEAK. We're very pleased that PEAK is one of our main collaborators in this project, and delighted that tonight you're really in for a treat because you're going to hear from a great panel of family members. Diane Perry is the president of PEAK. Karen Salomon is one of the parent consultants, as is Natalie Leaders. Future webinars, we'll be having two this coming year, well actually in 2014. On January 22nd, we're collaborating with the Peel Center, who is the Parent and Information and Technical Assistance Center in Western Pennsylvania, and there, as well as Educational Law Center in Pennsylvania. And we're going to be presenting a session on special education rules and regulations for charter, private, parochial, and homeschool. So this is something for all of those of you who would like to learn about what specifically those rules and regulations, the laws are pertaining to your schools, and inclusive practices, and all of those wonderful regulations that will really give you the knowledge to be equipped to understand and advocate for your child's rights. This will be a session that you wouldn't want to miss. As well as on March 19th, we're going to be doing a session on teamwork for success, the parent-professional relationship. Again, a really important piece where you can really learn how to partner with professionals, the educators and administrators in your schools. We've already done one webinar, Creating a Vision for Your Child's Future, and this will be archived and available for you the first week of November. This was a very successful webinar that was first done in May 2013, was originally done in May by Tim Grussel, who's a wonderful speaker. So we will be notifying everybody who's on this webinar to be able to access that. And that's what I just talked about. Great. So just a little more information about C2P2 Family Leadership. One of the important components of this project is that anyone who has come to our webinars will be able to have some guidance and technical assistance from trained parent consultants. As I mentioned already, the Institute on Disabilities is collaborating with Pennsylvania's Education for All Coalition, PEAK. Parent consultants will be matched with families participating in these trainings, anyone who needs guidance and technical assistance. We will be giving you the name of Kathy Rochia-Meyer at the end of this, which you will be able to look for again, and you'll be able to contact Kathy and tell her that you would like some of that technical assistance from our very well-trained and well-informed peak parent consultants. In May of 2014, a face-to-face networking event will be held for eligible C2C2 family leadership families. The Institute on Disabilities has a long history, over 2 decades, of providing leadership development to families and individuals with disabilities. And we have found from we have close to 400 graduates of our leadership development training. And aside from the great information that people learn from attending the session about the rules and the laws and the evidence-based practices, people tell us consistently that the most important aspect of going to these trainings is really networking with other families who are in similar situations. That networking is so valuable. When we wrote this grant to the Developmental Disabilities Council, we recognized that we really needed to have a session where people can join together. So please look for that information that will be coming up as to the location of that, and we encourage people who are partaking in the webinars to really come and participate in that. So, online resources that I mentioned, we do have a few of those. One is a NING group. You'll see the link right there to join. It's a closed online resource that will have some different resources, and you'll be able to post some questions in a very private manner and get some good information about things pertaining to inclusive education in non-traditional schools. Another piece that we have put together is a Facebook group, and you see the link right on your screen there. You would just click join group, and your request would be accepted in a few days, and you can post and read comments there. So we encourage those of you who are want to get online and join us in that way, that would be 2 of the ways to get some more information and really begin a dialogue with other like-minded families. So again, the goal is to create a network of family leaders who will work together with educators and administrators to champion inclusive practices for children with disabilities in non-traditional school communities. And there is Kathy Rochia-Meyer's contact information. She's our family education coordinator here at the Institute on Disabilities. She is a family member of a young man who happens to experience a disability, and she is very, very well versed in the laws and evidence-based practices. So I urge you to contact Kathy, because she would be the contact for information pertaining to getting matched with a parent consulting, or getting online and becoming one of our members of Facebook or NIC. So please feel free to give her a call. Just some housekeeping issues for tonight's session. When you have a question, please use the hand icon on the right side of your screen to be recognized. Just click that if you have a question. We will be if you have a question at any time, please feel free to do so. But the one way that you need to do that, as I said, is to hit to click on the hand icon that you can see on the right side of your screen. And then you can either, if you have a speaker on your computer, you can speak through your computer, or you can use the chat option. I want to let everyone know that you'll all be muted. We will unmute you if you have a question. And at the end of the session, what we're going to do for folks who may not want to be ask an anonymous question and not be recorded, because this session is being recorded, so it will be archived for people who weren't able to join us this evening. But if you want to ask a question that is confidential, we will do that at the end of the session. And again, we assure you that that question and answer period will not be recorded. It's very important to us that you complete a very brief evaluation after this session. And you can go to www.surveymonkey.com. That link is right there. and you will be able to access our evaluation. So without further ado, we're going to just, your screen will be blank momentarily, but you're going to have the great pleasure of having our 3 panelists talk to you about inclusion of all children in schools. So thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you to Kathy and Kathy here at the Institute of Disabilities for working with us, and we're very happy and proud to be able to bring you this module tonight. Inclusion, supporting all abilities of students learning together. Forgive me, this is my first webinar. We did do a practice session, but I'm going to see how well I can do on my second time around here. Let's see. We did have our project coordinator scheduled to be with us tonight, and that would be the proud mother of little Sophie in this Girl Scout troop picture, and her mother, Jennifer Schrod, who is our project coordinator at PEAK. She unfortunately is having some medical issues right now and was unable to join us tonight. So I have the pleasure to bring you Sophie's story throughout our slides tonight. And we wanted to first start off with Sophie and her Girl Scout troop. And this brings a lot of significance. We thought it would be a great way to start our training tonight because Sophie is in the first grade and she is fully included in her local elementary school, but she also is involved with her local Girl Scout troop, and that is them right there. They just recently participated in a buddy walk, and through that buddy walk, all her Girl Scout troops rallied around Sophie, and they even featured them in the local newspaper as Sophie's team, or I forget the whole, I think it might have been just Sophie's team, and they rallied around her for the buddy walk for people with Down syndrome. And so Sophie was very proud, as you can see her in the front there, and actually that's her sister also. So it's her friends and everyone there with Sophie. And I probably didn't give her story justice, but hopefully her mother is proud from what I remembered. And now a little bit of background. Jen was going to give you a little bit of background about who PEAK is and what we do. And as Kathy first introduced us, we're the Pennsylvania Education for All Coalition. And PEAK has been around for over 12 years now. And what we do is we're all about collaboration. And we collaborate towards inclusive experiences. So not only does inclusion happen within schools, but it's in your community, it's in your church, it's everywhere that you go, it's at the playground, and inclusive experiences should just be a natural part of your day as anybody else experiences, whether you have any ability that you bring to the table. And what we believe. PEAK believes that all children should be successfully educated together in their neighborhood schools within the general education curriculum. And what I always say when I talk about this slide is that you need to have the right supports and services along with that. And we all know in this lovely state of Pennsylvania that looks very different. In every school, in every district, in every building, it's very different. Should it be different? A little bit, but we're going to get into a couple more slides a little later about the law and what are your rights. But those rights, those supports and services are very critical to the success of any student who's going to be educated in their school. And not only myself, but the others will be here to tell you a little bit about our own stories and our own journeys. And some of that will be, what we were able to work with and how we were able to work within the schools and not maybe sometimes. And hopefully you'll leave here tonight knowing that not only is inclusive practices happening within the school, but again, it's all about the community. and that collaboration. So what exactly does PEAK do? We provide individualized support, we provide training and technical assistance. And then next to that, who do we provide that to? So we provide that to parents and families, educators, universities, and self-advocates. I see we have a question. We'll get to that in a minute, I think. Okay. PEAK also has the Parent Consultant Network. We are able to have a Parent Consultant Network because we do have a grant through the Pennsylvania Developmental Disabilities Council. And due to that grant, we're able to bring our parent consultants who are parents who have been there and done it, and they are the experts. They are the experts that we have out within PEAK that do the work that we do. So we recruit those parents, we train them, we then support them, and then we utilize their gifts because each parent has very unique experiences that they bring to the table, and that's what makes them the experts. And these are all parents of children who receive special education services. They're committed to inclusive education for all children, and that is strengthened by the collective wisdom of all of these parents who have been there. And we support them, and we do compensate them for their time. That's why we're very proud to have that grant through the Developmental Disabilities Council. So here's my family, myself and my husband and David, and that's David going through his senior prom. And this is a very special picture to start with because it's kind of like, David is 20 now. So now that, he's 20 and he's been through the whole school system and he actually walks with his class, it's kind of a pivotal picture to talk about our journey. There's David going to his senior prom with all his friends that he went to school with. And for us, throughout David's journey, inclusion was not always easy. And I will always tell every family that it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And you need a lot of people around you, and you need to know a lot of stuff. And PEAK is there to support those families with that. And you're going to have high notes, you're going to have low notes all throughout life. But this picture is very pivotal because not only did he go to his senior prom, but he walked with his class. And every ounce of whatever we went through over the years, tears, anger, whatever you go through when your children go through school was all well worth it. And that's what that picture shows, and that's what that means today. So tonight, we're going to be bringing you the Introduction to Inclusive Education. PEAK has many modules, and all of our parent consultants are able to bring various modules that's part of the trainings that we do, to schools, to colleges and universities. We do guest lecturing. And so these modules, some of them are used there, and some of them are used just in various locations. We are going to have, we're hosting a conference November 15th and 16th. And that will be, you can go to our website for more information. Our information will be on here a little bit later. But that is going to be a great conference about relationships. And where do those relationships are, and what does that mean, in school, out in the community. So it's going to be a packed event for 2 days, November 15th and 16th. So check us out. Tonight, though, Introduction to Inclusive Education, we kind of went over a little bit of the welcoming, and you'll be meeting the other parent consultants in just a few minutes as we go through this PowerPoint. You're going to learn what is inclusive education, why do we have inclusive education, and with those whys, what are the values, the laws, and what does the educational practices and outcomes show us? And we're going to talk about that. And I hope you enjoyed this cartoon here. One of our board members, Colleen Tomko, draws a lot of cartoons for the parent side, and she shares her experiences. And if you ever have time to visit and look at her work, it's all about her experiences with her son. So it's a way of how she expressed herself. So enjoy them as well. We're also going to be going through some slides about how do you do inclusive education? What are the best practices? And what did I mean about when I said you need those right accommodations and adaptations, those supports for your child? What does that mean? And in the end, we're going to show you what inclusion looks like as well. And here's just some of our goals that we're going to be going through tonight to help you understand what inclusion means, what are the opportunities, what's it show, and we're going to be going through many of these points tonight. And as Kathy mentioned earlier, if you, like you said, if you have a question, raise your hand, and then we'll also be able to answer some of the questions here. The PowerPoint will be available to the participants by tomorrow, so that is going to be available to answer one of the questions there. So now I'm going to hand the next section over to one of our parent consultants, Natalie Leaders, and she's going to share a little bit with you about the next couple slides. There it is. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Well, like Diane introduced me, I'm Natalie Leaders, and this is my family. I am mom to Jesse, who is 13 years old and in the 7th grade at a Philadelphia public school called Bill Friedman World Academy. And I'm wife to Larry, besides chief advocate and case manager for our son. I am also a member of PEAK, as Diane mentioned, and everyone's mentioned, that's who we are here tonight giving this presentation, a parent consultant. And sometimes, after all these jobs are done, I get to earn a little bit of income as an artist. I have written a script to tell my story, and I will be reviewing some concepts about inclusion that include my own family's personal story or experiences. So please excuse the unpolished presentation, and I'll be glad to share even more at the end if we have time. Okay. I wanted to tell you that my husband and I feel that we live in a great community in the city of Philadelphia that has grown from being very blighted to a destination place. The neighborhood is Northern Liberties and has become the way it is now, mostly through a combined vision of its residents and a strong neighbors association that started over 30 years ago and is still going strong. It was a very inclusive, accepting, and diverse community then and still strives to be. I was going to read that before this slide, but I feel like it goes with this slide. So inclusion, what it looks and feels like. To me, this is a powerful slide showing what it means to a variety of people. There are arrows leading from the word inclusion to words like friendship, wholeness, quality school, social justice, cooperation, harmony. If you took the word inclusion away from this slide, you see that these statements are universal at describing a quality life experience anyone would want to have. Personally, I value these concepts. I had developed my own ideas about inclusion unknowingly from the time my son, Jesse, was born. We belonged to a community play group where the moms shared experiences with each other while the kids played. And then when the weather was nice, we took the group outside all together to places around the city where all kids would go. There were discussions about the qualities of different preschools while the kids were still crawling. Some of us got together for play dates. There was a babysitting co-op. We knew that we belonged and we thrived in this great social community now that we had Jesse. Exclusion. Okay, so what it looks and feels like. When you are not included, what could you be? Excluded. As my son's milestones fell farther behind the other kids, and as I learned about his disabilities, I became aware that we were losing pace with everyone else. He needed some special services, so we couldn't participate as much, and when we did, he didn't have the play or social skills to keep up. we became more isolated. When preschool time came, we had only one choice: the center-based program provided by early intervention that was specially designed only for kids like him. And at that time, I did feel a lot of despair and loneliness. So not only was Jesse beginning to be excluded, I felt excluded too. Now, I feel like we could and should belong with other kids doing what they like to do without the stigma of him participating with too many supports beside him. Here's Jesse on the left with his cousin at a horseback riding camp this summer. And it wasn't a therapeutic horseback riding camp with spotters on each side of him. It was a camp about horses, their care, and riding lessons. And it was with a group of kids who were passionate about being at this camp. So I think inclusion touches all parts of life. I started to learn more about inclusion, generally speaking, by participating in the C2P2 leadership program, similar to this, similar to what you're learning here, when my son was still in preschool. And inclusion just made sense to me. Why shouldn't we continue to be a part of our community? And Jesse had the choice to go to one of the preschools his peers were attending. Socially, I thought we were already on the right track. Everyone already knew us and accepted us even more than I had realized. Jesse, my son, is an only child, and we took him everywhere. It was easy to not change our lifestyles too much, and because of that, we continued to do things in the community as we had before he was born. I learned how to get my son some services and supports in the neighborhood preschool. I also learned that it can be much harder to take these away than to add them. So when we signed him up for kindergarten and met for our first IEP with the school district, we had a posse, as my husband liked to call them, of therapists and teachers and aides that convinced the school that was where he belonged. Our neighborhood school included with all the other kids in kindergarten. And with the supports and services that had helped him to succeed in preschool. Okay. So here's Jesse in the community with some friends from that he had known since preschool, and now they're in the second grade. Inclusion is interwoven in all parts of life. Like the pieces of a quilt, and the pieces help to make a whole. Inclusion becomes a way of being that supports a quality life. If we consider how it feels to belong, the benefits of inclusion can be immense. There is so much information and resources on how to make inclusion work. We also have federal and state laws that support inclusion. So, I have described how inclusion felt like the right thing to do from my experience and my values. So, what are our values? The other common values you see here support inclusion. The more I learned about inclusion through trainings like these, I understood why it felt right. We already belonged, like I said, in our community for years before Jesse, and we felt that it was a great place to live and raise kids because of the diversity and the civic commitment by a large part of the population. Every day, Jesse was learning and practicing new skills, and we figured, why not expect from him what other kids could do? And why not expect that he participates with the other kids? Philosophy guides action, what we believe. So what do we believe? This slide says to me that the ideas on the left and the ideas on the right are philosophical opposites. Philosophy guides action. Is it right that only some belong? Or assume that some can learn and some can't? When people want to be charitable, we can find ways to support others where and how they need to be supported without stigmatizing them. We don't look for ways of how to exclude them. I chose this photo of my son, his first day of school this year, because he was so confident. He knows that he belongs at this school with all the other kids. He was extremely happy to go back to school after summer break. And I just, this just says it all. Now, we are going, Karen is going to come over and replace me and do.
Good evening, everyone. This next section is on laws and rights. And one of the first cases that dealt with inclusion or kids in school is Brown versus the Board of Education. And in this case, Chief Justice Earl Warren said, separateness in education can generate a feeling of inferiority as to children's status in the community that may affect their hearts and minds in a way unlikely to ever be undone. This sense of inferiority affects the motivation of a child to learn and has a tendency to retard educational and mental development. This is me and my family. My husband and I live in near Ambler. We have 2 boys. Our oldest son is Steve, and he is a junior here at Temple University. And our youngest son is Adam. He is now a senior at our local high school, and he is the reason why I know a little bit about this next section. Here's a slide that shows the evolution of special education law to support inclusion. In addition to the Brown versus the Board of Education, there are other federal laws that mandate inclusive practices. This slide lists several of these laws. We are going to highlight those that are more specific to our state, because here in Pennsylvania, parents have been trailblazers. And it is important for us to understand and appreciate what the parent voice and involvement has been able to be able to achieve. So the first one we're going to highlight is the Park Decree.
So we did a little shift because there's we wanted to take each of us wanted to take a certain piece of the law that maybe we feel more passionate about. I feel passionate about the Park Consent Decree in 1971, the Pennsylvania Association for Retarded Children versus Pennsylvania. And yes, back in 1971, they used the word retarded. We now use intellectual disabilities. But this is very pivotal for us because this was a group of parents in Pennsylvania, and actually in the county that I live in is where the majority of the parents were, so I feel like I'm connected to some of these parents as well. And they got together and sued the state of Pennsylvania because their children with mental retardation were not going to school. So they needed to fight for access for them to be able to be even educated. Years ago, some of you might know some of the history, and any of you that do know me, I love the history piece of people with disabilities, but a lot of that is because we never want to go backwards. So the Park Consent Decree actually is a great win for families. Students with who had mental retardation, which was the term they used, were then able to attend school. And then from there, it started to happen as far as the students not just being down the basement, being in the classroom, and so forth. So we're going to go through some of those other laws that highlight and gave students with disabilities more rights. And we're going to do like another little shift here for you.
Okay, now we're going to jump ahead on this slide to 1993 and the Oberti settlement. Now, the Oberti versus Clemington case is a Third Circuit Court of Appeals case, and we are in the Third Circuit. The Third Circuit encompasses Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. And in this case, the court said that schools must consider the whole range of supplementary aids and services, and they must make efforts to accommodate the regular education program, to accommodate special education students. The judge in this case said inclusion is a right, not a special privilege for a select few. And then we're going to jump ahead a little bit now to the Gaskin settlement, which was in 2005.
So as Diane said, we're talking about something that we feel most comfortable about, and I believe that the Gaskin settlement really gave me strength and power to keep my son included in his school, fully included in school, all the way up until the 5th grade. The Gaskin settlement took the Oberti settlement a little bit further. The Gaskin settlement agreement is a formal resolution between the Pennsylvania Department of Education, otherwise known as PDE, and a group of families and advocacy organizations who filed a class action lawsuit against the PDE in 1994. After 11 years, the parties in the lawsuit reached a settlement. Gaskin refers to the lead plaintiff, Lydia Gaskin, a former Carlisle School District student with Down syndrome. The goal of the settlement is to ensure that IEP teams consider the regular classroom with supplementary aids and services that students with disabilities need in order to receive a meaningful benefit from education before considering a more restrictive placement, and that supplementary aids and services should be provided to all students who need them and provided in a way that avoids stigmatizing the students. Okay. Here you go.
So there's a lot of information on this slide, and I wanted you to recall earlier that as part of Webinar Wednesdays on January 22nd, there is a training that will cover this area in more depth. It's called Special Education Rules and Regulations, and again, that's going to be on January 22nd. So now today's law is IDEA, which does support diverse learners. IDEA stands for it stands for the Individual with Disabilities Education Act. Now the words inclusive education are not included in IDEA, but it does emphasize the least restrictive environment and a free and appropriate public education. When it comes to placement, here's what IDEA has to say about that. It says, to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities are educated with children who are non-disabled, and separate schooling or removal from the general education classroom occurs only if education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. And that phrase, supplemental aids and services, is really key in successful inclusion. And there's a whole wide range of services that can be brought to students in general education classrooms. They can be environmental or physical accommodations. It can be instructional. Does the curriculum need to be modified or adapted to an individual's learning style? It could be a paraprofessional or a teaching assistant in the classroom. Students might need testing accommodations. Perhaps the test needs to be modified. Perhaps the child would do better if they were pulled to a smaller classroom in order to take the test. There's many kinds of instructional accommodations that can be put in place for students, and there could also be social or behavioral supports brought into the classroom to assist children to be successful. And IDEA also talks about the concept of the Individual Education Plan, or the IEP. IDEA says that disability is a natural part of the human experience and in no way diminishes the right of individuals to participate in or contribute to society. Improving educational results for children with disabilities is an essential element of our national policy of ensuring equality of opportunity, full participation, independent living, and economic self-sufficiency for individuals with disabilities. This is my son, Adam. He is become quite a good skateboarder. This is his passion. He likes to do it all the time. We work to include him in his school. He's been included since he was in 3rd grade. And we've also worked to include him in the community, and skateboarding has really helped him do that. It seems we know where every skate park is within 15 miles of our house, and when we go to those skate parks, it seems like most of the time Adam does know somebody who's there. I know we went out to eat at a local restaurant, and the waiter recognized Adam. Adam didn't recognize the waiter, but the waiter recognized who Adam was. We knew Adam was really a pretty big piece of the skateboarding community when we were in Germany this past summer. We did not realize it at the time, but the X Games were in Munich this summer. And as it turned out, as Adam's luck would have it, most of the pro skateboarders who were competing were staying in the same hotel we were at. And as we had checked out and we were leaving the hotel, Adam walked by the lobby and went up and said, "Hi, Chris." "Hi, Tom." It turned out he knew 2 of the kids who were participating in the competition from our local skate parks. And it was a highlight of Adam's vacation. It turned out that one of those kids did win a gold medal at the X Games. So we could not have planned that more perfectly for him. Worked out very well. So now we're going to move into educational practices and outcomes. There's a lot of research on the benefits of inclusive practices. I know I've been to several conferences on this. Dr. Richard Villa is a very popular speaker. He has spoken all over the country and, in fact, all over the world on inclusive education. And he has shared that there is no research that supports segregated education. The research in this area is very clear that inclusion benefits all children. For students with disabilities, the research shows that they do better academically when they are included. They have better standardized test scores, and they have better reading skills, and they also have improved post-school outcomes. Those students who are included are more likely to be employed once they leave high school. They're more likely when they are employed to earn a higher salary, and they're also more likely to live independently. Students with disabilities are also benefited socially by being included. And also the research shows the opposite as well. It shows that students who are primarily segregated demonstrate regression socially. So there's a lot of research on the benefits of students with disabilities. But the research has also shown that students without disabilities benefit from being in inclusive classrooms. They too have a better academic performance. Students at risk in general education classrooms benefit from curricular adaptations and other supports provided in the classroom. I know as we pay attention to the kind of supports and adaptations that we have for Adam, Adam's not the only student in his classes who benefit from those. When the teacher repeats directions, when they use visuals, Adam's not the only student who benefits from that. All the other students are aided by seeing visuals in the classroom as well. I know when we go to presentations such as this webinar, we're so used to seeing PowerPoint that they're such a nice aid for us to follow along and to learn along with the speaker. I was at a training for PEAK with Jerry Petroff. He teaches at the College of New Jersey. And he did an experiment. He said in his classroom, when he told his students that his PowerPoint equipment was not working, and he straight lectured, so the students had no visual support. And he said that only lasted 2 classroom periods where his students begged him to please get that PowerPoint equipment fixed, because we do learn better when we can combine the auditory and the visual component in with everything. And students without disabilities are also benefited socially as well. There's a reduced fear, increased comfort and understanding of the worth of human differences, and enhanced self-esteem, a genuine capacity for friendship, and the acquisition of new skills. And students are included. Now we're going to move on to the benefit of inclusion on teachers.
So you see, we keep shifting to keep your attention, so hopefully that you're still with us tonight. I know it's getting a little bit later, and we have about 45 minutes left here, so hopefully we will continue to keep your attention here. And I'm going to be talking about what the research shows for the impact on teachers. And I have seen this over and over through my son David's experiences in school, and also now working with PEAK, because we partner with many school districts and colleges and universities. And we hear over and over again that supports this research about teachers having increased skills and improved confidence in their own teaching abilities. The teachers know that when they go for different staff development training, and they utilize if they go for specific training for maybe a particular student that they know they need to adapt, like Karen was just talking about, they then know that this isn't going to just benefit this one child. They even know, the teachers have that confidence that it's going to benefit all of the children in their classrooms. And they also have a different sense of the other teachers that they work with, their colleagues, and they start to get intrigued by, oh, wow, what are you doing, and what are you doing? I know when my son David was included for different subjects, the one teacher taught social studies, and he was a very active social studies teacher, and he would have these students perform and do different activities. And this was in high school, and they did they were learning about Greece, and they were learning about, the mummies, and they actually did like a whole mummy ceremony down the halls and so forth, and they knew all this. But it was just the teachers. He was a coach. He was teaching, but he was in a co-teaching situation. So there was a regular teacher and a special ed teacher, and that wealth of knowledge working together was just more powerful to all the other teachers. And then they took that out, in my opinion, out to the school so that they could see what their class was really doing. It was one of those classes that all the students wanted to be in. And that's the other thing. There's the teachers. They're those teachers that just know and just do it naturally as well. And here is a picture of some of the teachers. When PEAK first got started, we worked with some of the schools in Philadelphia, and we got together some of the teachers in one of the school buildings, and they actually sat down and talked about, what does that look like for teachers? How can we make our school more inclusive? And Karen referenced Dr. Jerry Petroff, who did this PATH process, and I believe it was through here at Temple that they did this PATH process, where they said, okay, what's the vision of the school? Where do we want all the kids to be learning? What does that look like for us? And as you can see, they're building partnerships and diversity, and that's all what we're going to be talking about. You have to build those partnerships and those relationships, and that's key to success for inclusion, whether it be in school, in your community, or anywhere that you go. And again, here's Sophie, and Jen, if she was here, would be taking over at this point of the slide. But here's her daughter, Sophie, and it's just a beautiful picture of her. And she just photographed very well. It's amazing. And I think this might have been at the Easter party in the community. I think they had like a parade in her little town, and she was all dolled up for the community parade. And what Jen would be talking about is the inclusion that benefits all families. Jen's daughter is still very young, so she is experiencing and looking at the family connections. And while even when our children get older, we have those family connections, but a lot of times when your children are younger, you know, you kind of look at, you know, what's the other connections in the community that we need to make so that the families are enriched by those experiences. And as all of us have been talking tonight, you know, we have our children out in the community. We are doing all of those community connections that you need to do. You need to go out and, you know, you might be fearful. What if my son does this, or what if my daughter does this? And you know what? It's sometimes you just have to, you know, give it a shot. And if it happens, you know, whatever happens, happens, and you might be pleasantly surprised. I always like to tell the story about, I think it was David, it was in middle school. And of course, he's making his friends and stuff, and the girls come knocking at the door, and they said, you know, we're going to the park. We thought David would like to go to the park. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, yeah. And so, you know, and of course they all went to the park, and at his age, you know, he should go to the park with them, which he did. But as his mom, I'm thinking, you know, I probably need to go. What if something happens? What if he needs this? What if he needs that? What will happen? You know, it was like the first time he was just like going with his friends. And so, you know, the good mom that I was followed him, and I stood behind the bushes and just made sure that everything was going fine. But they did have, you know, they had cell phones back then, so the one girl had my cell phone, so she called me if there was anything, and you know, but everything was fine. But it's that, you know, like, oh my God, yeah, okay, well, this is what's supposed to happen. Okay, yeah, go ahead. But you know, and so yeah, it's that whole how it benefits all families. And I always like to used to always say that everybody needs to experience David. You know, that all the families need to know who he is, what he's about, and how does he affect your family, and hopefully in a positive way. But it's building those partnerships. You know, when you're in your community, you're building that school and that family partnership, which is that third section there, that you have to have that good communication as well, that you're building those partnerships and learning about each child in your community, which is very important, with or without disabilities. So, and let's do another shift here.
So really this slide is a summary slide of what we've been talking about these past few slides. Inclusive education is best practice in education for all learners. And remember that special education is not a place. It is services and supports brought to students through their individual education plan. Now, it's often treated as a place. I know my son has autism, so I can't tell you how many times when we've discussed one of his needs, and we've been told, well, we work on that in the autistic support classroom. And one of the things that doesn't seem to make sense is most individuals with autism have deficits in social skills. And almost always when we've wanted the team to address this, we were told, oh, well, he has to go to the autistic support classroom where he can sit in an autistic support social skills group only with students with autism and social skills deficits. And really, my son learns so much from his typical peers. They are his best teachers, behaviorally and socially. So it is really important to remember special education is a service, not a place. And to think, how can we bring those supports and services to the child, not have to bring a child to a specific place.
Hello again. So anyone can be successful in any environment, and that's the message we wanted to bring to you. So, you know, as we started off, you know, what is inclusive education? Why inclusion? You know, and this is what we're trying to hit on some of those important points here tonight. And anyone can be successful in any environment if he or she has the right supports. And that is the key. I talked about that earlier. Without those right supports, we, you know, our children, whether with or without a disability, and no matter what setting that you're in, you need those right supports. So when we talk about inclusion, and I know a lot of times it sometimes gets a bad rap as far as, you know, okay, we'll include them, so we'll just throw them in the classroom. And that means they're going to sink. You know, you can't, it's not a sink or swim possibility of being included. When you swim, you want to be able to have the supports that you need. Is it assistive technology that the student might need? Is it a personal assistant that they may need? Is it instructional or curricular modifications? So the teachers need to go for extra staff training. Or maybe the families can be a part of that as well. And these are just some very snippet of some of the accommodations and supports that can happen within the classroom. And here are a few more. So, and this is also, as you're going through your meetings that you have for your child who receives special education services, there are certain questions you can be thinking about with your IEP team that you should consider when you're planning, you know, where will my child receive their education? Where will they receive their supports? So to start you off, some of the questions that you may want to bring to the table are what we have listed here. Can the student do the same activities as peers? You will also find these questions on the Patent website, www.patent.net, and that is the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network. And they have what's called annotated IEPs, and in each section, they will give you some of these guided questions as well. So that's another resource that you can go to. And you can get that resource from Kathy Rocha-Meyer, which you were given her contact information, or us. You can get that information anywhere. But these are the questions that you ask. Can the student do the same activity as the peers? Yes or no? And then you start thinking and talking about that as a team. Can the student do the same activity as peers with support or reinforcement? And you just keep building that up. That where does your child, where will they need the support, or won't they? Can the student do the same activity as peers with modifications or changes? And then you keep going up the ladder there. Can the student benefit from some part of the lesson? And a lot of times that's what happened for my son David. He might not have been getting that full lesson. And what we did is we had an inclusion specialist that looked at the full lesson, knew that what David's strengths were, and developed what some of those important, usually 3 goals. What are those important 3 goals that we want David to learn from this particular lesson? So he may not have been getting the whole lesson that also a lot of the students can benefit from, but David knew what his goals were that he had to achieve. His assistant knew and the teacher knew. And if he wasn't getting anything different, he was still getting the same classroom curriculum, but he just had different goals. Some more questions that your IEP team may consider. Is it time efficient for the teacher? And if not, what supports does the teacher need, which is very important. A lot of times we kind of, you know, of course it's an individualized education plan. You're there about the student. But sometimes you need to really think about what do the teachers need for support. Sometimes it is some type of staff development. Maybe it's planning time. So the principal needs to figure out in that teacher's day, when is the best planning time for them to get together? Because if you have a regular ed teacher and special ed teacher working together, they need time to think about that. Or is the child receiving new therapies? When is the therapist talking with the other teachers as well and figuring out, okay, when do I need to, you know, come pull out, or can I come into your classroom? When's the best time? Are you having a cool lesson this week? When can I do that? These are the things that need to be talked about within your IEP meeting. Does the student like the idea? If not, why not? We all think about the IEP, and is your student attending the IEP, which is very important because they need to know, they need to take ownership of those goals as well. So, and they need to know what the expectations are. So maybe they might even have a better idea of how they could learn that lesson, and we need to listen to the students as well. And you want to be able to promote independence with the accommodations. It's not something that you want them to depend on, because possibly someday that child's going to be going to college, and when you go to college, it's a whole other, you know, ball of wax there. You're not going to be able to get the same type of supports as you do in the high school setting when you go into college. So it's very different, and you want to be able to have that goal and prepare that student for that type of setting if they go that way. So we're going to be wrapping up just a little bit here, but we wanted to be able to show you some snippets of what inclusion looks like as we've looked at it through Peak's eyes over the years. Here's David, and that is him graduating and standing out front with his graduation. Again, like I said earlier today, when I started off with David's picture, and when we talk about inclusion, and now that I'm older and David's older, I can reflect back on several years of, you know, we had lots of ups and lots of downs, but all the downs and all the trouble, any type of roadblocks that were given to us, to include David or not, were all so well worth it when he walked across that stage with all his peers that he went to school with. Same with going to the prom, going to that prom with all of his peers, you know. These were all the kids that he grew up with. And I can tell you that now that David has been out of school, I see a lot of his peers and I see their parents. And I hear now that a lot of those students who are now going to college themselves that went to school with David, a lot of them are choosing a lot of careers within education. You know, there's somebody who's studying speech therapy, another one wants to be a special education teacher. One actually said they want to be a history teacher, but they want to be able to do that, what's called the co-teaching model. They want to actually teach with another teacher together. And it's just very cool to hear these stories over and over again. And, you know, I'm very proud to know that these students, you know, if they did not have that experience with David, I feel that they may not have chosen that avenue as far as their career. So we'll see. Someday, hopefully, they will achieve those. And I'm going to switch because this is not my child.
This is Adam when he was in 4th grade. Adam is the one with his hands raised out to the side. This was his 4th grade birthday party at a bowling alley. We would invite his whole class, and his whole class would come, and we just thought that was a really nice picture to demonstrate inclusion. He would get invited to birthday parties, and what was really interesting is he got invited to a birthday party probably around the same time as this photo was taken, probably when he was about in like 4th or 5th grade. And the parent of that child invited all the kids back to take a then and now photo and to restage that from when the kids were in 5th grade and now when they're seniors in high school, so they can put that in the yearbook. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what that picture looks like. And we're going to move on.
Okay, this is a picture of my son Jesse. That field day, the last day of school last year, and he is on the yellow team, even though he has an orange shirt on. And he is with a group of 6th graders that he was included with for lectures throughout the year, and they made sure that he was on the team, on their team. And I feel that what I've learned from his experience is that when kids with disabilities have been included, they're able to feel that they do belong. They know they belong with the other kids, and they have so many more opportunities to learn from all those other kids.
Okay. So just a few more photos. What inclusion is. It's students working on goals that are meaningful to their life. Here's a young man, looks like they're in the library or in a classroom working on some goals there, looks like with another student and possibly another teacher helping him. It's all about embracing our differences, no matter what the student brings to the classroom. It's embracing all of the differences that our children have, and we do too. There's religious differences, cultural differences, physically challenged, anything that is out there, and that is what inclusion is. Inclusion is having friends. I hear over and over and over again from families who have kids with disabilities, and this is key to a lot of what inclusion is. You know, my child doesn't have any friends, and you know, as they get older, and how do I do that? And, you know, part of, for me, having David included, he was in class with these students. So he does have friends. And his friends may look a little bit different than his brother's friends, but everybody's different. I mean, actually, his older brother doesn't have as many friends as David does. And, you know, David is the one with the disability. So, you know, every child is different in that aspect. And when you think about it, as we get older, I really have probably 2 good friends that I grew up with. You really only end up with sometimes 2 or 3 really good friends. So if your child does have one good friend, that's really cool. And then you just build on that throughout your life because you'll have many life experiences. But having friends is very important to have that success. Parent gave a quote, "No skill could make his life as rewarding or fill the void as much as having friendships. Without friendships or relationships, there would be little happiness or motivation for my son to learn or achieve his potential." And any child who's not motivated in the classroom is not going to learn, and they're not going to achieve to their best ability for that. My son David right now is in what's called a VOTEC program, and he's learning culinary arts and hospitality, and he is loving it. And he is so independent there, and the growth that we've seen in him just within the last 2 or 3 months is amazing because he knows he's taking ownership and he has that independence and he's got that motivation. And when you have that motivation of the teacher and that support, it just happens. And it is very cool to see how happy he is. And what can I say about this? This is just an amazing, awesome picture of our young friend Will playing in the T-ball team. And it's a great picture, but I have to tell you that the parent really had to advocate a lot in order to have him even play T-ball in her community. But this shows how awesome it really ended up being. So sometimes that pain that we go through to make sure our students are included is all well worth it. And I think that is the end of our slides. So we will look to our attendees for any type of questions. If you want to use your hand, raise your hand, and we will unmute you, and you can ask your question. Or you can type it down in the box in the chat portion. Okay, Rachel, I'm going to unmute you. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Rachel.
Oh, okay. My son just started a charter school this year, and he has a special education teacher who's only been teaching for this is her 4th year teaching. She and my son are not having very good experience. He's in the 5th grade doing block classes. All his teachers are great with him except for this one who is supposed to be his advisor, math and reading teacher, and she's just really nitpicking and picking on him. And despite me having several conversations with her and the special education supervisor, it just seems like the situation is getting worse. And I've requested that he be changed out of the class into another class and was told that he needs too much support and the other teachers would not know how to support him. So I'm just not really sure what to do.
Okay. Who wants to take you? Did you want to take that? Okay, so they want me to take that one. Well, I mean, it sounds like you started off having IEP meetings, and trying to address the issue. You addressed it at the school level. You went up to the special education supervisor. And can you refresh my memory again? This particular classroom is
a special ed class.
It is a special ed class, and he's there full time.
Yes, he's there full time.
Okay. So have you made it? You may want to look back at some of the slides where we talked about the accommodations and those questions. And
right, because I also asked her about having a BSC to come in to observe the class, and she said absolutely not because he does not have aggressive behavior.
Okay. How many children are in the classroom?
22.
Okay. So we have, it looks like we're getting a little, no, okay. Okay. So I was just reminded that the remember I talked about Patent earlier?
Yeah.
PATTAN.net.
Yeah.
And they have what's called a supplementary aids and services toolkit. And what happens with this toolkit is that you have the patent people, or they may actually have the intermediate unit people come into your school building, and they look at the whole education of that child. So they go into the classroom, they talk to all the teachers that teach him, all the therapists that teach him, and then they develop a plan of action as far as how to best support your son and what does that look like.
Okay.
You may also give Peak a call. We have our parent consultants that do help the parents one-on-one, and we would be able to match you up with a parent who might have some of that knowledge. But you want to be able to contact Kathy Rochemeyer, and she'll be able to, guide you through that process to get in contact with us. And we would be able to have that consultant maybe talk with you over the phone, through email, and or possibly go to your meeting if that's what you're looking for. So we can also follow up in writing as well. What's that?
Okay.
Oh, okay. The other tidbit that I'm giving here is that you want to make sure that you're putting everything in writing. That is key to any child's success. So when you're asking the teacher to get together, when you're asking, for any type of evaluation, all of these things that you do, all should be in writing. You want to be able to have that paper trail for you and your son in order to make sure that if down the road that you need to utilize it for something else, that you do have it. Always keep a record.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any other questions? Okay, what we'll do now is that we're going to stop the recording part in case there's anybody who has any questions that they would like to ask that is not being recorded. 1 second.